Hello, my name is Barbara Asbell and I'm a retired teacher. I taught for 31 years and more than half of those years were here in this county. I knew early on that I wanted to be a teacher. I guess preschool, maybe at 4 or 5 years old. I was born in 1935, and so in the 40s, of course, World War II was going on. And there was a lady next door to our home who had 4 extra bedrooms. She is a big 2-story house and all of her children were grown and gone. And so she rented out those 4 upstairs bedrooms to 4 teachers who taught at the school just about a block from us. My mother befriended them, and they would come over to our house because Mother was always baking cookies and little good tidbits and so forth. And I got to know them, and I thought, oh, they're so nice and they're so pretty and they dress up so nicely. And they would be telling Mother about some of their students. And I thought, I want to be a teacher. So I just grew up with that in mind. Teaching just prevailed strongly. And I went to East Carolina University. I taught first, when we moved here from Atlanta, I was at Tabor. Now at that time, Tabor was not just a junior high or middle school. It was grades 1 through 8. And that was nice. I taught 3rd grade because that was where I wanted to start. I taught at Tabor first, then Watson. Then I went to Parkwood and Shirley Hills, of course. So I've taught in different schools here and had good relationship with all the principals. And in all, when I moved to other states and cities, I taught under 9 different principals. But I always could brag on what a good person it was. I have always loved teaching, and I would still be teaching probably, except my husband and I had always said when we retire we want to travel and see as many countries as we can. So when I retired in '95, I said, now let's start our traveling next summer. So we did, and for the next 7 or 8 years, we did that. My classroom was our daytime home. So I wanted it to be a pleasant atmosphere and a learning atmosphere. And I love artwork and decorating, so I made sure that my classroom was an invitable looking place. We were going to spend many hours a day in there, and I wanted the children to be a part of that. So I would try to plan things for each month. I didn't push and make, I tried to instigate their interest, because teaching children to want to learn and to enjoy learning is the way I try to do in my education system. And I also liked for my 3rd graders to learn to discover encyclopedias and dictionaries and learn research. And that worked. I wrote a program, and I shared it with some others later on, about February. It dawned on me that February has 32 great events on famous people or inventions that were made in there. So I decided to write a program on it and do some research myself. And each day of the month, we'd have someone that we were studying about. Oh, and the children loved that. Well, we were studying about Thomas Edison in the February month, and about his mother having surgery, and the lighting was so dim, and he was so afraid the doctor would cut in the wrong place. and he wanted his mother to have light, but you know, back then they had those lamps. And he thought of a mirror, so he put it behind the lamp, and it magnified the light in there, and the doctor was able to see and save his mother. So I think that year I was teaching second grade though. I would go where I was needed. I preferred third at the time, but I went up and down and for variants too. But one little boy who was a second grader, when we were talking about it, I said, aren't we lucky that people are discovering things that have really changed our world, made life safer and more fun? And I says, that's the reason we're talking about inventors and inventions and what has been made. And I said, I hope that will continue, don't you? I said, just think if Thomas Edison had not done that, oh my goodness. One little fellow raised his hand and said, Miss Aswell, if Tom Edison hadn't done that, I'd have did it. When I was teaching at Avondale in the Atlanta area, there was a little boy that just didn't want to make a mistake. And if he were bothered about not catching on real fast, he'd say, oh. But it would be so cute when he'd say, now I have it. I got it, Miss Aswell, I got it. I hope my students will remember that I did love them and I did what I thought was best for them and I cared about their future. Because what we do in our present and have done in our past will affect our future.
Hello, my name is Gloria Combs. I'm in the midst of my 41st year of teaching. I've always lived in Macon, Georgia. I attended McAvoy High for girls. I graduated in 1971, but by then it had become Southwest High School. I was the first year of Southwest High during the midst of integration. And then I attended West Georgia College in Carrollton for 3 years. I was able to graduate in 3 years with a degree in history, sociology, and I added on secondary education. And I graduated in August of '74, got a phone call from Mr. Arthur to come interview for a job at Northside High. So I graduated Sunday in August and started work at Northside the next week. They were looking for a teacher that could teach sociology all day. So I was very fortunate that I had the sociology degree. And I've been at Northside now my entire career for 41 years. I retired after 33 years and now I work half day, which is a joy. I love working half day. Teaching in Houston County has been a great experience, especially with my principals. I am so thankful that I work with Matt Arthur, which everyone loves Mr. Arthur. My first year teacher, I had his daughter in class. Imagine how nervous I was to be a first year teacher. And Nancy being in my class, and I was single, 21 years of age, and I was getting married that summer, and she played the guitar in my wedding. So I remember Nancy forever. And I get to run into Mr. Arthur and Sarah Bob, and it's just such a joy to see them. And what a great experience to work under him. Well, the classroom has changed drastically. I started off with a blackboard. Now I had used a Promethean board. I just got a smart board. But I started off with reel-to-reel films. I doubt if you've ever seen one, reel-to-reel film strips, chalk, no air conditioning. I taught my first 15 years with no air conditioning, big box fans blowing, quite an experience. So now I do appreciate central heat and air, PowerPoint lessons. I can't even teach without a PowerPoint lesson. I used to bring many books into the room to show photographs and pictures, and now, luckily with the PowerPoint, it allows the classes to be so graphic. I really believe in teaching with visual images of anything we discuss. I do have a student now who's an attorney, and I think about her quite often because she was a student of mine. I had her in the 10th grade during 9/11. and she was a Muslim student. She is a Muslim. And I remember being worried about her, thinking, how is she going to handle the circumstances? And she and I talked, and I even asked her to speak to my other classes and students to try to give a perspective of what it's like being a Muslim living in America. And I'm just so proud that she's now a practicing attorney. I am most proud of having the opportunity to supervise 14 student teachers. And I'm so proud of them because they've been so successful in the classroom. I've worked with one of them now. I have worked with 4 of them over the years. Others of them are different schools in the county, but I just loved being able to supervise student teachers. I learned as much from them. I hope they gained something from me, but I definitely learned a lot from them. They always would bring in new and exciting ideas, innovative ways, and I would get to adapt them to my classroom as well. Working part-time has been a blessing. Flex time, I think, would be wonderful for so many educators, especially those teachers with small children. Just to be given the opportunity to come in late. All of them don't want to work part-time, perhaps, but there's just so many advantages, excuse me, to being a part-time teacher and to have the flex time. I hope my students remember me as a teacher who really prepare them for the future. When I teach, I talk to my students constantly about college and their future careers. I'm not teaching for the day, I'm not teaching for the test, I'm not teaching for the year. I'm preparing them for their future. I want them to think long-term rather than short-term just for the test. Many of them just want to know what they need to know for the test. But I'm hoping that they learn how to study and a joy in learning as well. My favorite change throughout the year was the technology. The use of YouTube. We could not use YouTube for so many years. There are so many good educational clips. I don't have to show an hour-long video. I can show segments, I can stop it. I just love the technology that's available. They enjoy, I enjoy. It's a wonderful way to teach a lesson. For any new teacher, just know it's not an 8-to-5 job. You need to love what you do, and the Lord has blessed me by having a passion for what I do. And that's why I've been able to stay in the classroom for 41 years, because of that passion that I still have. But I hope other young teachers will have a passion for teaching as much as I have over the years.
My name is Jim Hardy. I live in Thomasville, Georgia, and we're here about my mother, Miss Dorothy Hardy. I have a brother named Charles who lives in California, a brother Sidney who lives in Dublin, and a brother Alton who passed away 13 years ago. So there were 4 brothers in our family.
I'm Sally Hardy Talbert. I live in Warner Robins, but I grew up here in Perry. I was in Doc Hardy's 6th grade class back in probably 1966. But Doc Hardy was my aunt. I'm her niece, but I was one of her students back over at the Perry Grammar School building.
My mother was born in 1918 in Oglethorpe County, Georgia. She grew up on a farm with her father and mother, and she had 3 sisters. They had a brother who died of the great influenza of 1918. My grandmother, my mother's mother, she graduated from Shorter College in about 1908, and my granddaddy went to the University of Georgia. So the education has always been very important in my mother's family. Her father and mother used to drive her to school on the muddy old roads at Tacoma High School. That's where she went to school. All of her sisters graduated from the University of Georgia, but she went to the college in Milledgeville. Now, I did not know why she chose to go down there to Georgia. The GSCW is what it used to be called, Georgia State College for Women. She started school when she was 15. She graduated from high school, Valley Victorian, when she was 15 years old. Went down to GSCW, and she did some summertime studying at the University of Georgia because it's close to home, because they lived within a matter of 10 miles of Athens. Well, anyway, she graduated from college when she was 19 years old in June. That fall, she got a job teaching 6th grade in Vienna, Georgia. She taught school in Vina, Georgia, 6th grade for 3 years. Then at the age of 22, she got married. And when she got married, she moved to Perry because of my daddy, Alton Hardy, lived here in Perry, Georgia. Then, when my oldest brother graduated from high school in 1959, she went to Mercer University that summer to get her credits so she could start teaching school. She loved teaching school. So she started teaching school the 6th grade here in Perry, Georgia, the building across the street from where we are now, the old Perry Elementary School. So I actually went to school there myself. Anyway, she started teaching school, and she loved teaching school. And one of her, she taught English and English composition, and she taught also with a lady, Mrs. Horn from Pinehurst. She came up and taught math. A little bit later on, she loved teaching school, and she used to love to have the plain English handbook. She was a stickler for grammar. My brother tells me that when she came to school the first day, she said, "My name is Dot Hardy, but you'll soon learn to know that my middle name is Grammar." She loved for people to speak correctly, to enunciate words, and to speak proper English. And civility was very important to my mama. She wanted people to be kind to each other, to show respect for each other. It didn't care who you were or who your mama or your daddy was, everybody was going to be treated the same. She knew that different students had different abilities. Her main purpose in teaching was to get the very best out of that child. It didn't matter whether you made an A or a B or a C or a D or an F, but if you did your very best, that's all she wanted. And there's a great poem she loved about a poet from Georgia named Frank Libby Stanton. Frank Libby Stanton wrote for the Atlanta Constitution a long time ago. He had a poem called "Keep a Going." And this kind of sums up what Mama believed. Frank Libby Stanton: "If you strike a thorn or rose, keep a going. If it hails or if it snows, keep a going. 'Twain no use to sit and whine when the fish ain't on your line. Bait your hook and keep a trying, keep a going. When the weather kills your crop, keep a going. Though 'tis work to reach the top, keep a going. Suppose you're out of every dime, getting broke ain't no crime. Tell the world you're feeling prime, keep a going. When it looks like all is up, keep a going. Drain the sweetness from the cup, keep a going. See the wild birds on the wing, hear the bells that sweetly ring. When you feel like singing, when you feel like surging, sing, keep a going." That was kind of her motto, keep a going. No matter how things were, good or bad, keep your head up, look them in the eye, and keep a going.
Not only did we do English grammar, study English grammar, we learned the different poems. We had to memorize a lot of these poems. And we also learned about the poets. We didn't just memorize the poem. We learned about the poet, and if there was a story, I can remember when we had to learn in Flanders Fields, we learned the history of the poppies and all the story around the poem. We also, at that time, did not have music and art education classes, so she would always make sure we did a study of famous composers, famous artists. So that was included in our language arts as well as the English.
And one of Mama's students that I didn't know, Deborah Roberts, when she was one of my mother's students. I wasn't living around here then, but one of the chapters is from Deborah Roberts, and let me just read you what she said. "Teachers believed in me, and for that reason I felt special and different too. My 7th grade English teacher was Mrs. Hardy. She wore red nail polish and red lipstick, had graying white hair. Her clothes were always right, and she was the prim image of a teacher. Her expectations were very high. We didn't chew gum in her room. We used proper English, and we knew that we had to accomplish high goals. Everyone was terrified of her, but I always wanted to please her. She introduced me to poetry, to speaking grammatically, and to striving to do more. She embodied much more than English. If I read a poem well or punctuated something just right, she would praise me. She was hard but fair, and it meant so much to me to do well in her class. I felt so accomplished, empowered, and strong coming out of her class. She was responsible for my speaking abilities and my yearning to want to be the best. A tough coach makes you feel like you're capable of everything. I was trying to form who I was, and I could have been attracted to the kids who hung out and were the slangy, hip kids, or to the ones who strived more and were considered geeks and eggheads. Mrs. Hardy influenced me to make the right choices, and to this day, I remember her. And that was written in this book about Mama. I think that's a high testament to her, and I suppose it's reflective of other people. But she always wanted everybody to do their best. I cannot stress that enough. And this goes back to her. I think her strong upcoming as a Baptist. All of her uncles were Baptist preachers, and her daddy they went to church every Sunday, and she was a strong Christian lady.
Hello, my name is Sheila Wade Keener, and I have been a teacher in Houston County School Systems for 37 years. For me, it is a particular honor to be inducted into the Teacher Hall of Fame because I am a product of the Houston County Schools. I went to Watson Elementary, I went to Rumble Junior High, and later graduated from Warner Robins High School. I was privileged to be taught by some of the finest teachers in Houston County, and each one of them had an impact on me, the way I would teach and what I would teach. After I graduated from Warner Robins High School and entered Tift College at Forsyth, Georgia, there was no doubt but that I would be an English teacher. I had always loved to read, and I loved people. So I graduated from there with my Bachelor of Arts in English Education. Later I received a master's degree from Georgia College, and also I became certified in gifted education as well as AP education. When I graduated from Tift, I was hired by the man who had been my former principal at Warner Robins High School, Mr. Joseph Williamson. He hired me to teach summer school, talk about baptism by fire. I think he rewarded me later on that summer by hiring me to teach full-time at my alma mater, Warner Robins High School. And there is where I remained for all but one of the 37 years that I taught. I am married to Steve Keener. We had one child, and he and his wife gave us our two precious grandchildren that we absolutely adore, and they bring joy to our lives every single day that they are with us. The majority of our time is spent with them now. Steve and I were very active at Central Baptist Church, our home church, where we taught a Sunday school class for young couples. I taught ladies' Bible studies until he left his job to go into full-time ministry as a preacher. Today I still enjoy reading, I enjoy working with people, I enjoy teaching, I volunteer at my grandchildren's schools. You just can't get rid of teachers. They love to be back in education or educating people in some way. And it seems that there are so many moments every day to teach, and that is what is the joy of it all. The classroom has had creativity. I like to foster creativity, and we had so many creative projects that were in there over the period of time that I taught. I have had various and sundry people from the community coming in to talk to my students. I've had students who have sang projects, who have made wonderful creations to show us in class. It didn't matter what we had to do. For me, there was always something that they could do creatively, and they could excel there. There was one student who managed to sleep with his eyes open, and I used to tell my students this story because when a student came into my classroom, we always had the rules of the room as to how they were supposed to act, and one of them was, don't let me catch you sleeping in this class, as if they could. However, there was one boy I noticed, and I always thought he was a most attentive learner, to tell you the truth, student, because I would notice he'd put his hand like this and he would just look at me. But I also noticed one day that as I moved, his eyes did not move. And I heard the students chuckling around him, and I walked back to where he was, and I could hear him softly snoring. most unforgettable. I thought he was just an attentive student, and here he was, sleeping in class. I think that sometimes when I thought that I was teaching and had everybody on the same page with me, and we were having such a great time, that all of a sudden, a girl would holler out, "Help!" And I thought, what is going on? Because we were having a great discussion, and she was like this, and she said, "Help! I wanted to know how it felt to wear contact lenses. So so-and-so over here had them. I asked her to give it to me, and I put it in my eye. Help me, I can't get it out." And she was just blinking, and I thought, that's just great, That is what we teach for. I thought I was doing an awesome job up here. Everybody was on the same page, and she's over here talking about she has a contact, stuck in her eye. But those are the moments. Unforgettable students, yes, very much so. It was so much fun to work with the students that I taught. We had a great time with each other. What I like best about teaching, first of all, was the interaction every day with the students who walked into my class. I taught 10th, 11th, and 12th grade English. The last probably 10 or 15 years I taught seniors. And I have to say they were my favorites because they had all the answers. They were going out into the world and they had all the answers. And I was there just to be a part of their learning experiences. They will also, and I hope that they remember that even though I was a tough teacher, that it was so much fun learning with them, because I learned as much from them as I could ever teach them. And I want them to always know that I saw them as individuals. I never collectively looked at them, but to me they were individuals, and that I wanted them to succeed, and I wanted to do my part to help them get to that success. That's what I want them to remember, that I really cared about them. Stay contemporary with what you're teaching. Students change. Lessons can be taught a number of different ways, and each student can be taught. Each student can be successful. You've just got to figure out how to help him be successful. I would also say to them that a lot more learning takes place in a classroom rather than what is in the book, because you are teaching them more about living, about relationships with people, how to get along with people, how to respond in different situations. They're looking to you, and you are an important influence in their life because you have them on a daily basis. And most important piece of advice is to remember that every student's worthy. Every student has value, and to make the best of the opportunity that the Lord's given to you to reach those students.
Hi, I'm Sarila Saib. I'm a retired teacher of 34 years. But it was second grade that I had the teacher that impacted me most, Miss Burns. Miss Burns created the most loving atmosphere in her classroom. And I decided then, at the grand old age of 7, that I was going to teach school. I was going to grow up and I was going to be Miss Burns. I majored in English and minored in elementary education, which became a huge bonus for me in my career. I met my husband there. We married after my sophomore year in school, and that was a huge bonus for my entire life. He graduated and went ahead and was teaching in Houston County, and then I finished my last 2 years at Mercer, and I also came to Houston County and started our career. And we both had wonderful, rewarding, satisfying careers here in the Houston County schools. I began teaching in 1972 at Alberta Elementary School, and I taught second grade. and I had wonderful, wonderful mentor teachers there. That was probably the greatest thing for me as a new teacher, was having these wonderful, compassionate women who really guided me through the process of how to organize a classroom and how to run a classroom and these. Now, I taught there for 2 years because at the end of my second year, I was pregnant and my baby was not due until September. So I resigned and was looking forward to spending some time home with my little boy. But I only got to spend 6 weeks because I got a call from Mr. Musselwhite, who was the principal at Warner Robins Junior High. They were overflowing with students and they needed an overflow teacher. So I spent 4 years at Warner Robins Junior High, and luckily for my students, only one of those was in science. So I spent the rest of my time teaching English, which is my passion, and reading there. Then I had another baby, so I resigned again. And this time I got to stay home a whole year with my 2 little boys, and it was wonderful. I loved being a stay-at-home mom. But my husband came home from work one day and he said that he was ready to get back into the classroom. He was working in the corporate side of America, and he just decided he was through with that. He wanted to go back into the classroom, and he was a wonderful teacher. He needed to be in the classroom. But the pay cut was significant enough that meant I had to go back to work. So I did, and this time I was called to teach at Warner Robins High School, and I found my home. It was wonderful. I spent the last 28 years of my teaching career at Warner Robins High School, and that's exactly where I should have been. The second year I was teaching, I had a little special needs boy in my classroom. His name was Tandy, and he had no trouble writing T-A-N-D on his papers, but that Y, it just gave him fits. So we finally figured out how to make a Y in the correct manner, but it would appear anywhere on his paper. It did not necessarily wind up next to that D in his name. So the first time that he wrote his name without me assisting him, T-A-N-D-Y, in the correct order, he brought that paper to me with the biggest grin on his face. And let me tell you, that was a moment to celebrate. That was a proud, memorable moment in my teaching career. The thing I like best about teaching are the kids. I loved my students. I loved their energy and their enthusiasm, and even some days the lethargy that we had to work ourselves out of. I loved their curiosity and their brilliance. I want to be Miss Burns. I want my kids to look back and think, that was fun. We had fun in her classroom. But we learned. I really do hope that they felt that it was an intellectually stimulating environment, because that is my primary purpose for being there, is to teach them. But I also hope they felt the warmth and know that I cared about their intellectual development, their social development, their moral development. I hope they felt all of that. My advice is work hard and laugh a lot. You need to work hard for a couple of reasons. First of all, that's what your students deserve. They come in there needing you and expecting you to teach them, and so you have to come in prepared to do that. And the other thing is, you really do need to laugh. Some days you've done all that hard work and you're just teaching your heart out, and all you're seeing out there are cloudy eyes or furrowed brows, and finally the hands start going up and the questions start coming that you think you've thoroughly explained. And some days all you can do is just devolve into laughter because it ain't working for you. And you just gotta punt. You gotta do it over. And that's okay.